Hey, I saw Ween the other night up here in up in Austin at a brand new, pretty nice amphitheater, pretty much in the heart of downtown, just north of downtown, right by the university. Amazing show. One of the brownest shows I've seen in a while. Just one of those where like the people surrounding us kept asking us, what song is this? What song is this? Because they were all like deep cuts, a lot of deep stuff off the early three albums. They did Mononucleosis. For only what they say is the second time only, and I believe in them, they did Sucking Blood from the Devils. Such a way, Diener even said, "Hey man, we rehearsed this earlier," and then he turned around and you could literally hear him yelling the changes to the band as they stumbled through an amazing version of that song. But it was just 3 hours, it's like 2 hours and 50 minutes, just some of the brownest, darkest, dirtiest, nastiest just music ever. I highly recommend, if you have not seen Ween and you have a chance, if they're coming to your town, go see that band live. They are phenomenal. And if anybody knows, I'm trying to find a really strong Dean, a Ween Zappa connection, because I will definitely deep dive into Ween, because I could talk for hours about that band. But yeah, all right, that's it. On to some Dylan. What's up, people? Thanks for watching. My name is Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, currently ranking and reviewing the 31 Bob Dylan albums, the studio albums in his sort of official discography, not doing bootleg series, not going anywhere near the Christmas album, not touching the covers only albums or anything like that. Just the 31 sort of studio albums that he put out, no live albums. Broke them up into tiers. I did not have any D tiers. I think even the two worst, Down in the Groove and Knockout Loaded, are C minus at worst. They have moments that redeem them to not being complete failures. So this is the S tier. There are 8 of them in there. 8 of them that I think are just, that each have their own sort of like ineffable quality about them, that despite having that quality, I'm going to try to put into words and describe anyways. But there's something about each one that, and I think this is true with almost all Dylan albums, that each Dylan album definitely seems to be of one spirit or one vibe. They're not very eclectic as far as like mood goes. He does a really good job of like establishing a mood and then varying the music within that mood, but not really going too far outside whatever that vibe is. But I think the vibe for these 8 is just like it's strongest and it's purest in the things that attract me the most. Plus the songs are ridiculously good. But anyways, I started the channel to only do Frank Zappa. I've since expanded Frank Zappa's universe to include anything that would be in the big note under Frank's definition of the big note. Dylan gets in there because, for one, there was a beautiful homage to him in Flakes. But another thing that I have not pointed out, and it's going to appear on the S tier list, is there is a line in Mr. Tambourine Man, cast your dance and spell my way. I promise to fall under it, though that's not how Dylan sings it. But on Bongo Fury in Deborah Cadabra, Captain Beefheart will sing that, cast your dance and spell my way and promise to fall under it. And it's sort of like this repeated refrain that kind of closes out the end of the song. And so I thought for a while that when I first heard that, I immediately thought it was a Dylan reference back in like the late 80s, because I was into Dylan and definitely knew Mr. Tambourine Man by heart at that point. So when I first heard Bongo Fury, I thought that was a Dylan reference. Then over the years, I thought maybe it was a Shakespearean line and Dylan had lifted it from Shakespeare. But just Googling it right now, when you type in that lyric, Dylan's version pops up as like the primary source. So assuming Frank maybe quoted Dylan, if this is not a phrase that is just a lot more common than I'm aware of. But yeah, there is another connection. But anyways, that's a lot of rambling. But anyways, yeah, these are my top 8. When this is all said and done, let me know what you think. Let me know your top 8 or top 10. If you're interested in what the top 10 are, number 10 was Slow Train Coming, the first of his 3 sort of gospel albums of late 70s, early 80s. And 9 was Time Out of Mind, the first of his return to new form in the late 90s after he did those cover albums and experienced the horror that was the 80s. So those were 10 and 9 respectively. And now on to number 8. Number 8, Nashville Skyline. This is the country album, for lack of a better phrase, or for an absolutely perfect phrase. Johnny Cash comes in and does a duet on Girl from the North Country. Dylan fully commits to the lay, 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 that country croon that is just so incredible. The songs are all really just short, effective, terse, simplified, but not simple. Like, we are not getting these, to keep Mr. Tambourine Man as a thread, we are not getting these sort of psychedelic swirl of lyrics that we had in previous albums. We are getting a lot more just terse, effective writing, with a very country vibe. There's sort of an instrumental, like, little country rag jam session on here. Some of the highlights: Lay Lady Lay, Girl from the North Country. Nice little, one of my favorites is Country Pie, which is like your cheesy, like, back porch jam country song. Think it's phenomenal. And the closing: Tonight I'll be staying here with you. Tonight I'll be staying here with you. Why does that sound wrong all of a sudden? But yeah, just, 27 perfect minutes. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. If you don't like Country Dylan and you don't like Country Dylan's voice and you really are there for the crazy scrambling lyrics, yeah, maybe you will not like this as much, but what Dylan does with less is just phenomenal. Number 8, Nashville Skyline. Number 7, The Basement Tapes, which came out in 1975. By the way, Nashville Skyline came out in 1969. The Basement Tapes. I think one could easily do a 30-minute video on the Basement Tapes and not even get to their opinion about it, but in as succinct a description as possible. If you're not familiar with this, Dylan had a motorcycle accident in 66. He kind of holed up with the Hawks, who would then become the band, and they recorded 138 tracks. Couple of them were taken and re-recorded, which were co-written by the band when they became the band. A couple of them, the Byrds recorded, but most of them were not released. They were heavily bootlegged. In 1975, 16 of them were going to be released. They added 8 more early The Band tracks that did not feature Dylan on it. Or even songs performed by the band that Dylan had written but didn't feature the band on it. So there's 24 tracks, 16 with Dylan and the band, 8 with just the band. They kind of alternate, so you got to go to Dylan, back to the band, with or without Dylan. In a way, it reminds me of Lucky Charms. I don't eat Lucky Charms a lot, but we do a math activity every year in my kindergarten class where I buy a box of Lucky Charms. We sort them, we graph them, we do all this estimating and stuff, and we always save some to eat, and I eat some also. And this album kind of reminds me of Lucky Charms, because over the years I've come to like the taste of that really weird cereal, the actual cereal, but I still actually like the really horrible sweetness of those marshmallows. And I feel like Dylan is the horrible sweetness of the marshmallows, even if the songs are like really intense, like a Tears of Rage, which he sings on here. Even there, if there's an intensity to it, just his voice and his presence has a sweetness to it compared to the band still trying to find their footing on their tracks. There are a couple really good band tracks on here. Yazoo Street Scandal, I think, being one of my favorites. Yazoo Street Scandal? Yazoo Street Scandal? Never sure how to say it. But the really interesting thing about this album for me is it really has a singular sound in Dylan's catalog where it sounds like it could be an album by the band with Dylan just as a lead vocalist. But the band had not yet recorded their first album. So who knows what their sound actually was other than a support band for Dylan. Maybe people do. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the band's history that much. But here, it really sounds like Dylan was like, I've written all these songs. We're going to record all these songs, 138 of them. He gets all this energy out, some covers in there and stuff like that. But some of his songs that he has written, particularly Going to Acapulco, literally sound like a song you could find on Music from Big Pink or the band. Like, it would fit in perfectly in there. Yet Dylan wrote it and Dylan's singing it. And a lot of Dylan's singing style on songs like Going to Acapulco, Nothing Was Delivered, reminds me very much of Richard Manuel. So either Dylan already knew what Richard Manuel's sort of potential was as a singer and was just kind of emulating that because they were jamming together, in the same space for months and months and months. Or Richard Manuel was like, oh no, this is the way I'm going to sing because that worked crazy. Some of the more upbeat Dylan songs, I think he kind of has a Levon Helm vibe that Helm maybe took from him. But it really feels to me like this was just like Dylan creating this music and saying, hey man, take this and let this be your sound. We have invented Americana here in this basement. We have invented this new sort of soulful Southern vibe. Yet none of us are from the South, or maybe some of them are from the South. I honestly don't know. But we have created this just like the Grateful Dead did. The Grateful Dead created their weird Americana sort of outlaw Western vibe, and there's this weird Southern mentality, richness to the band and the Americana they invented that you hear so much in like the late double O's, early tens with like Deer Tick or Band of Horses, even some of what Diamond Ruggs did. I think Ian St. Pay's delivery on some of his songs sounds a lot like Dylan's delivery here for Black Lips. But yeah, I just think this album is like one of those that's not immediately like has the most catchiest Dylan songs other than say You Ain't Going Nowhere, but it just has the richest, deepest, most like, if you love the band, I don't know how you could not absolutely love this album, especially when Dylan is doing his best to just be the band and they're just right there with him. And then they took the sound that these songs created and just made it their own. And I don't know. This is just a phenomenal album. It's one of those that reveals layers every time I listen to it. I do think the band tracks are not as good as the Dylan tracks, but all the Dylan tracks are incredible. Some are fun and lighthearted. Some would have a more soulful richness to them. But yeah, again, one could make so then later recently, I don't know, by 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago now, they released the complete Basement tapes. So everything I think apparently that they found was released on like a 6 CD box set. So if you like this, the riches have all been revealed. So anyways, yeah, one could go on forever about this, but it is my number 7, the Basement tapes. Number 6, the Freewheelin Bob Dylan, his second album, came out in 1963. Other than one track, it's again just Dylan, his voice, a guitar, harmonica. I don't think there's piano on this yet. We've not yet introduced that into his musical world. But I mean, just listen to this. These are some of the songs on here. Blowing in the Wind, which if you have not listened to that recently, as I tend to not, I feel like I've heard that song so many times I don't need to hear it. And then every time I go back and listen to it because I want to hear the rest of this album, I'm like absolutely blown away by like how relevant it still is today and how like what an absolutely perfect folk song it is. And then I'm blown away by that. And then you listen to the rest of the album, among the tracks being Girl from the North Country, Masters of War. And then you get to side A, the closing Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall. And you're again like, what? He wrote 2 absolutely perfect folk songs on the same album. And then you continue on to side B and Don't Think Twice, It's All Right kicks it off, closes with I Shall Be Free. It's just like his second album back in 1963. It's just an absolute game changer. It's just absolute like, the crazy thing is like, how often do you find like a second or third album that is this like absolutely phenomenal, and then the artist is unable to repeat that, or maybe just tries to repeat it, and so you're recycling stuff. But to think that like he would achieve this and then would just keep upping his game to other genres and other emotions and other just modes of like musical attack, and yet achieve equally high plateaus. But like, this is a ridiculous album, man. Like, it is one of those that I've heard so many times that it's like I have to like remind myself that no, dude, you're gonna really enjoy it when you listen to it, because the songs are almost all ubiquitous, and it's like, oh yeah, you've heard that so many times, you don't need to go back. But man, when you do, you just appreciate the absolute mad genius that this guy was. Yeah, and that's it. It's just a phenomenally perfect album. Freewheelin Bob Dylan, number 6. Number 5, John Wesley Harding, came out in 1967. This was the first album he released after his motorcycle accident. This is obviously sort of maybe not obviously, a reaction to the sort of thin, wild Mercury sound that Dylan may or may not have said he was looking for, that he found on like Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61, that just chaotic, zeitgeisty of the 60s, just incredibly high-spirited vibe that those two albums had, sort of half of the one before that. And this is like drums, bass, Dylan on whatever instruments Dylan's on. I think there's a pedal steel guitar on 2 songs, but it is just like your most simplified, bare bones, economical, tight band, and they sound fantastic. Of all the Dylan sounding albums, the sound of this band is my favorite, and I would say it is just Dylan. I mean, like, imagine if Dylan had spent his entire career just a drummer, a bass player, and him. Like, it was just like, I don't know how if I would have got bored of that if the quality of his writing maintained what it was throughout the years. Like, what would like Blood on the Tracks have sounded like with just this combo? You know, what would Desire have sounded like, those songs with this combo? I don't know. Just one of the best sounding albums, and obviously the quality of the songwriting is just phenomenal. It's sort of not yet Nashville Skyline country, but there are definitely moments when he's working that out and figuring that out and sliding in that direction. You got the amazing title track, I dreamed I saw St. Augustine. All Along the Watchtower is on here. I've never been as blown away. Obviously, Jimi Hendrix's version and interpretation of it is phenomenal, but I've never thought Dylan's was not. So, like, yes, it is a much quieter, simpler song and not the powerhouse that every other band does this as, but it is still a perfect song. Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, which is a really fun storytelling ballad. I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. Yeah, man, just a really good, simple album, but not simple. Just a laid back, kind of chill vibe, like really skeletal almost, but allowing Dylan to just then fill that space with some of his best songwriting and lyrics, and just one of the best experiences. Number 5, John Wesley Harding. Number 4, Highway 61 Revisited. I mean, these top 4 are perfect albums. They're in this order probably because I've listened to Highway 61 Revisited probably the second most out of these top 4, but I think it opens up with Like a Rolling Stone. That might be the one Dylan song I don't ever need to hear again. Even like other bands, like Drive By Truckers, another band I love, they covered that song. It just seems one of those songs that I might have heard too many times. But this is an album that has that. It is a chaotic sound. It is a spirit of the 60s, just high energy, frenetic sound. Very surrealistic lyrics, a really healthy embrace of like chaotic existentialism in these lyrics. Just highlight after highlight after highlight. What do we have on here? I wrote them down somewhere because I knew I would not remember them otherwise because there's so many. But Like a Rolling Stone to kick it off. You got Tombstone Blues. You got Ballad of a Thin Man, which you can thank for every other Mr. Jones reference in rock and non-rock history since then. Queen Jane Approximately, Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues, probably I think the best song on here. Songs that the Grateful Dead would embrace and would perform live. Phil Lesh would sing Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues. That was always a highlight of any Dead show if that happened. And then the closing, nearly 12-minute, surrealistic, chaotic, sort of world building that is Desolation Row. That is just like the calmest musically of all the songs, with the lyrics that just are like, okay, you're not easing me out of this album. You're just creating way more chaos and confusion, in the best way possible. I mean, it's a perfect album. Highway 61 Revisited, which I think has some crazy, just some weird kazoo-ish sound effects. So there's this almost like chaotic traveling circus vibe at points. Yeah, man, it's a perfect album. Like these last four are perfect S tier albums. I think I've just listened to this a little too much more than the others. But yeah, I don't know, amazing. Number four, Highway 61 Revisited. Number three, the utterly perfect Bringing It All Back Home. This is Dylan's transition album, 1965, in which he does sort of his last side of primarily acoustic music, sort of not as protesty in any way, shape, or form, but still with a protest element, but with lyrics that are just even more surrealistic and even more like psych, but over like acoustic music, Mr. Tambourine Man being the prime example. And then he has an electric side in which he fully embraces sort of an electric rock sound. But being Dylan, he doesn't make it like a logical thing where we open side A with the acoustic, okay, we're putting this behind us, and then we're going to the electric. No, he puts the electric on side A. And then side B is the acoustic, and side B, the acoustic side, is the side that absolutely devastates the scenery. As perfect as the electric side A is, the songs are things like, what do we got on side A? We got Subterranean Homesick Blues, which obviously revolutionized everything. She Belongs to Me, Maggie's Farm, Love Minus Zero, just all of these absolutely perfect songs. But you then get to side B and you have Mr. Tambourine Man, Gates of Eden, the album closing It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, and probably, arguably, one of the best songs, definitely top 5 song I would say Dylan ever wrote, It's All Right Ma, I'm Only Bleeding. And so it's interesting because it's almost like Dylan was like, I'm changing over to rock. I'm becoming electric. I'm moving away from folk music. I'm embracing this new style that's coming up. Here is a side A of me doing that. But then he goes, but now I'm going to go back to just me and a guitar, and I'm going to like just blow it out of the water with like the best side of music, the most perfect side of music I've made to date, and would probably not, I mean, just, yeah, perfect. Like, who cares if he made one again? It is a perfect side of music. So, yeah, you get everything you could ever need from Dylan on this album. An intensity, a lyrical geniusness from start to finish. You get some love songs, Dylan's version of love songs. You get political songs. You get rising cries for protest. You get albums songs that acknowledge the psych movement. Mr. Tambourine Man, again, another one of his perfect, as sort of like, again, that's one of those ubiquitous songs where we all know Mr. Tambourine Man. It's so common in culture. But what a work of absolute genius. Yeah, it's a perfect album. The only reason it's number 3 is because there are 2 more perfect albums to come. Number 2, Blonde on Blonde. This came out in 1966. It is a double album. Came out 1 week before Frank Zappa's Freak Out double album, thus beating Zappa by 7 days for the first ever double album in rock music. A full-on realization of that thin, wild Mercury sound that Bob Dylan may or may not have said he was looking for. 4 sides of perfect music. I mean, what else? It opens up with Rainy Day Women. Again, Everybody Must Get Stoned. He just came out, put that out as the lead track. Yes, stoned could be have stuff thrown at you and killed. Could be sort of a drunken early, getting stoned, I think used to mean to get drunk in some communities. So maybe it was reference to that. Maybe he's embracing the drug culture. Who cares? He's on the leading edge of it right here in 1966. Visions of Johanna, another perfect song. Back-to-back albums with perfect songs. One of Us Must Know, I Want You, Stuck Inside of Memphis, Just Like a Woman, Most Likely You'll Go Your Way, an entire side of Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Every song on here just fits perfectly. The lyrics are perfect. The music is perfect. The band just vibes from start to finish. it is a double album that it is worth its length and its weight. And I think the fact that it is a double album allows it to keep revealing secrets for decades, because there are obviously some songs you're going to gravitate more than others. But as you keep revisiting this album, and it has so much to offer, those songs that may not have caught you early on, you're now like, I can't wait to get to this one because this is now my new favorite. I now understand its genius. I think this is one of those albums that for me, every time I listen to it, there's something in a song, either a line I just have not caught before, paid attention before, didn't get, or just a song that I'm like, oh yeah, this melody is now like, I'm with this. My only complaint, and it doesn't make it less than a perfect album, but I think Rainy Day Women would have been better sort of midway through the album than as a lead off song. I just don't like Rainy Day Women as an opening song. It definitely is kind of an anomaly, the sound of it, the way, just the overall vibe. And I think to start with that and then have a whole bunch of stuff that has the same energy but definitely doesn't sound the same, I think it doesn't work as well as if it had been buried somewhere in the album. But that doesn't in any way detract from perfection. That's just making it a different kind of perfect. So anyways, yeah, number 2, Blonde on Blonde. And again, this is another one you can make a hour-long video about. There are books about this album that are well worth reading. The Thin Wild Mercury Sound book, Wild Thin Mercury Sound book, Thin Wild Mercury Sound book is a great read on this album. But anyways, yeah, that's it. Number 2, Blonde on Blonde. And number 1, Blood on the Tracks. I've said this many times before. I do not have a memory of being in my mom's car from anytime I lived with my mom. So from the time I have memories of being in my mom's car to when I left for college, there was always a Bob Dylan Blood on the Tracks cassette and a Linda Ronstadt Simple Dreams, but among other things. But that Dylan album was always in there. And if I wasn't infatuated with some other album that she had and it was my choice to play a cassette, that was what went on. Early on, absolutely intrigued by Tangled Up in Blue, story songs like Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts. As I got older, songs like If You See Her, Say Hello just became gut-punching, emotional, just like the brilliance of If You See Her, Say Hello, I think is just like one of the most heartbreaking, agonizing, like, I still love her, but I don't want her to know that I still love her, because I mean, it's just, oh, it is so perfect. The wrath of Idiot Wind and brilliance of that, Tangled Up in Blue, every song. What's the one that Jerry Garcia band? Simple Twist of Fate. Oh my gosh. Like, every song on here is perfect. It is perfectly sequenced. It has a vibe of just like getting together and just jamming out the songs. Like, Dylan's like, I'm going to express these feelings I have. We got some simple changes. Let's just attack this song. And it just all feels so perfect and so natural. And every song is a top 10 song. This is one of those albums that I think probably the rarest of albums, because I've easily listened to this far more than any other Bob Dylan album. I know, every musical note and when it lands and every lyric, but I can still listen to this album today and tomorrow and Tuesday. Today is Sunday. And not get tired of it. I have never, not once, ever reached a point where I did not want to put this album on. I just think it opens up with Tangled Up in Blue, and I think that is just one of the momentum of that song, we're going to tell you a story, this is it, like the energy of the narrator who's kind of moving from scene to scene to scene, if you want to consider it a singular person. If it is a bunch of different stories, there's a momentum in that those stories are carrying you across the country to different parts of the country, the east, the coast, the south, the northeast, the west, the south, the north, like you're all over the place. I like to envision it as a singular person retelling, kind of jumping back and forth, past, future of the narrative. Who knows what it actually is. But just the momentum of that carries you into the album. And then you have Simple Twist of Fate, You're a Big Girl Now. And right when you're starting to reach a plateau, Idiot Win just like bam, just like punches you in the gut. It is brutal. It is honest. The lyrics are just friggin' amazing. But yeah, again, this is one you could do like, you probably, are there dissertations on this or have to be? Because this is just absolute perfection. 1975, we're talking, we're what, 12, 13 years on now, and he's making perfection after he's already done it like at least 3, 4, maybe 5 times. Amazing, amazing, amazing artist. By far, my favorite, number 1, Blood on the Tracks. That's it. That's all I got to say. I'm done with Dylan for now. I'm going to do a song list because I think I'm required by YouTube law to do a top 10 song list. So that will be coming very shortly. It's a hard list to compile, but I'm going to do it. So anyways, thank you for watching. Let me know why I was wrong. This is an era of Dylan. Almost all the albums on this list, I think, have really complicated stories. Like the Blood on the Tracks recording story is crazy. I know, the Basement Tapes recording story is crazy. I'm sure I've messed some things up. Sorry about that. Correct me in the comments if you know things I have missed. But anyways, let me know your top 10. Let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with, why some songs are overrated, why I messed up by not putting Desire higher up. I don't know. I just randomly picked an album. But anyways, yeah. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate it. All that stuff. But those are Dylan's S-tier albums. Peace. Take care, y'all. And just be you. Bye.